The doorbell. The house I live in now is a house that I own. But for many years it was rented out to tenants. Before it was rented out, I fitted a doorbell. It was quite an advanced one for the time. The push button had a pinhole camera and a speaker and a microphone. It was hardwired. I ran a cable through the hallway, under the stairs, and to a panel that was located in the kitchen. The panel had a screen on it, an LCD screen, and it was possible to when the doorbell rang, the camera would come on and you could see who it was. You could hear them. Obviously, most people are quite silent after they've pressed the doorbell, but you could press a little button and talk back to them. Generally speaking, to tell them to go away, or maybe just to ignore them. I'm not saying there's a lot of unsavoury types would ring the doorbell, but there definitely would be people that I really didn't want to be bothered getting up to and answering the door to. So it's quite a nice device, but anyhow, a while after that, the house was rented out to tenants, and for the few years that they were here, it broke and it was no longer functional. So there, a short while ago, I decided to replace it. I popped up to B&Q and I got a relatively cheap, relatively inexpensive doorbell. It was just a basic push button. It was a wired version. I put the existing cable in, so I just put the doorbell on the outside, the little button, transformer under the stairs, and then the chime units I positioned where the panel had been in the kitchen. It was pretty basic. When you press the doorbell, the chime would go. You could adjust the volume of the chime. And if you wanted to, you could have a blue flashing light as well, either with the chime or just a blue flashing light. It worked pretty well. It did exactly what it said on the tin. You pressed the button and the doorbell would chime. And for a few weeks, that was pretty much the status quo. It was fine. It was cheap, did the job. Then one night, I was asleep, and I was woken by a most unmerciful noise on the front bedroom window. Hailstones. It got steadily louder and louder and louder, and at one point, I did wonder if the window might smash, which is something that wouldn't be very agreeable, as it was pretty cold out. I could hear the wind howling as well. It was a typical winter's night in Dublin. So I lay there for a while listening to this cacophony against the window, and slowly but surely it started to dissipate, and it was silent once more. I'm not a really good sleeper, if I'm honest. After about 3 a.m. I can easily be awoken by pretty much anything, and sometimes I just happen to wake up anyway. Anyhow, I think I went back to sleep. You never remember going to sleep, but you always remember waking up. So I slept for a while, I think. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. And then the doorbell rang. It woke me up. And I lay there. And in my mind I was picturing that somebody had got into trouble. Maybe had an accident of some sort. Maybe they had broken down. Maybe they had a problem with their house. Maybe a window had smashed because of the hailstones. And they'd gone to the nearest house and was looking for help. So I got up and I went to the bedroom window and looked down. There was no one there. I paused for a moment and looked around. I looked left, right, and up and down the road. It would have been about 3, maybe 4 a.m. It was dark. It was light bit of rain, no hailstones, and there was not a sinner around. There was no one about. So I thought for a moment, maybe someone was playing a really stupid trick in the middle of the night on me. Maybe it was a malfunction of the doorbell, which is always possible, though it hadn't happened before. So I stood there for a few moments and waited, and looked, and nothing. So I elected to go back into bed and tried to go back to sleep. I think I did go back to sleep, because a while later the doorbell rang again and I woke up. I lay there and I had to think about what I should do. If it's just the same MO as before, what's the point of me getting up to check? But again, in the back of my mind, like the ringing phone that you have to answer, I felt I had to act and had to have a look. So once again I got up, I went to the window and looked down. And there was nothing. The rain had stopped and it was relatively quiet and no one around. So I stood there for a moment and thought, I wonder how long this is going to go on. Is it going to go on all night? And why now? Maybe it was the rain, maybe it was the hailstones. But both had pretty much stopped now. And there was no one around for sure, there was no one pressing the doorbell. So I decided to go back to bed. And this time I would ignore the doorbell. I wasn't going to respond. So I got back into bed. And I think I fell back to sleep. And sometime later, the doorbell rang. And I woke up. No, I'm going to ignore it. I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to get up. I'm just going to lie here and go back to sleep. There is nobody there. It's just a fault with the doorbell. And I lay there for a while. I think I went back to sleep for a while. And then the doorbell rang. And I woke up again. And I ignored it. And I lay there. And then this time, before I went back to sleep, the doorbell rang again. And then a pause, maybe a minute, maybe two, and the doorbell rang again. The pause was shorter now, and again the doorbell rang again, and again, and again, slowly building up to a continuous and relentless cacophony of the doorbell being repeatedly pressed time and time again, the sound of the chime echoing around the house from the kitchen. I decided I had to do something. I jumped out of the bed, ran down the stairs, glancing through the frosted glass at the front door to make sure there was no one there. I went under the stairs and disconnected the transformer to the doorbell. And the doorbell was silenced once more. And I stood there for a moment looking at the front door, looking at the frosted glass. Was that a shape I could see of a person? I have lights on the outside of the house, and you do get some very strange shapes coming through the frosted glass. So I approached the frosted glass at the door. I had put my nose against the glass so that I could see through the little sections of clear glass. There was nobody there, and I went back to bed. As I got back into bed, I did wonder if I would remember to plug the transformer back in the morning. After all, did I want to miss anybody coming to the door? And then I thought to myself, anybody who comes to my door unsolicited, generally speaking, I don't want to answer to, and I don't want to speak to, I don't want to be bothered answering. And that was it for a while. Once the doorbell was plugged back in, it was fine. It never went off during the day, never went off during the night. For a good few weeks, it was worked as normal. It was fine. And then maybe a month later, I was in bed. It was much milder now, maybe heading towards summer, probably spring. And the doorbell rang in the middle of the night.